Hey folks, welcome to another Bootcamp by Azure Developer Community. And today we are here with our new bootcamp on AZ-900. As you guys all know, that cloud is one of the most emerging technology right now. Each and every corporate company has shifted to cloud, and if not, they are planning to shift to the cloud very soon. So it becomes really very necessary to learn the technology if you want to get your career in cloud or in the industry in any other field as well. So to start with the cloud, today we have our boot camp on AZ-900, which is Azure Fundamentals. Before starting anything, we need to lay the foundation, and to stronger our foundation, today we have with us our speaker, Mr. Shreyan sir, who will be taking the sessions and the boot camp further. So welcome, sir, and over to you.
Thanks a lot. Hello everyone. I'm Shreyan. So, without further delay, let's just get into the bootcamp. So, let me just share my screen. Can anyone let me know is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, thank you. I'll just put in a screen share mode. Yeah, perfect. Hello everyone. My name is Shreyan Fernandez. So, currently a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I have worked in a startup before as a president and head of AI division, and I'm interning at KPMG India as well. And I'm a hackathon enthusiast, so I've participated in various hackathons conducted by Microsoft and various other tech industries. Recent one was from Microsoft again in association with BIL, wherein we bagged the first prize across India. And I'm an MTA certified in Python as well. And I'm a blogger and a global speaker. I write my blogs, and you can find my blogs on dev.to, and I've given the link there in the below. And I'm a global speaker. I've spoken on various topics, including blockchain, on various platforms. One was the recent one was in Azure Cloud Summit 2021 and various other platforms like that. So my domains of interest lie in artificial intelligence, blockchain, DevOps, web dev, extended reality, cloud computing, IoT, robotics, and Power Platform as well. Power Platform is again from Microsoft. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, and that's my LinkedIn profile URL, and you can follow me on GitHub as well if you want to view any of my projects. I actually have a couple of repositories of my own projects, so you can follow me on GitHub if you want to access them. Without further delay, let's go ahead and see what's in store for us today. So what's the agenda of this session? So firstly, let's see what is cloud and what is cloud computing. Then let's see when is cloud optimal, why should you use cloud, and some discussion around that. And why again Microsoft Azure? What is Microsoft Azure? Why to use Microsoft Azure? What does Microsoft Azure provide us? So we'll see everything in detail today. Where are the Azure services being used? So where can you use them, or are there any clients who are already using these Azure services, right? So let's just have a discussion around that as well. And finally, let's see how are Microsoft Azure core services beneficial to you. Um, since this is a learning process for this AZ-900 exam, so I think we'll have to go around the standard syllabus that is available on Microsoft, and it's available for you guys on Microsoft Learn for absolutely free of cost. So after the session, I'll tell you how to go there and how to revise today's session if you want to learn again for that, before the exam or stuff. Now let's see, without further delay, what is cloud and what is cloud computing, right? In very simple terms, cloud delivery of computing resources over the internet is what we can call as cloud computing. So now one might ask, what exactly are you delivering on this cloud, right? What are the computing resources? So computing resources can be anything. For example, virtual machines, serverless architectures, and containers as well. But it is not restricted to just this. So if I just say, okay, I'm delivering computing resources over the internet, so and I'm just saying these three, no, it is not just limited to this, but also your storage or the databases that you have, right? The SQL database and various other different kinds of databases that are available to you, so including them. And those are also given to you over the internet. And then finally there are a couple of services like IoT based services and various other services, right? Blockchain, IoT, AR, mixed reality. So basically, the whole umbrella of extended reality and many more things. So let's see each and everything what is that in store for us. and then again artificial intelligence, so analytics and intelligent services. So all these things provided to you over internet is basically what cloud computing does for us, right? So in very layman terms, so this is how I can put in what is cloud computing. Yeah, so before going ahead, let's see how did we reach here, right? Because of course there's a history. We have reached here, so there must be a history, of course. So again, the evolution of computing, let's see how did that come to this current day. So initially there were mechanical phases, and then there was a grand calculator in 1877, and that's when the advent of electronics has just started, right? And then there were AT&T order in 1939, and then there was Shaky Reasoning Robot in 1969, and just after that the computer started evolving, and then we had GUI, the first GUI, that was in 1981, and Spink's voice recognition system in 1992, and then WAM self-driving car in 1994, and then it just kept on evolving at a very rapid pace, right? And today we know we are in this era, like especially it could have taken a little longer for this evolution, but thanks to this all lockdown and moving on to this online phase, where we had to manage a lots and lots of data. So just for example, if I have to name a software, let's say Microsoft Teams, right? A few days ago we never knew that classes would even happen online using Teams, and we could even write our assignments on Teams. But it's possible today, and we have all been through that phase, and probably uh, many of us might have experienced that as well. So that's how data, I mean the whole computing thing has been evolved. We just know how we use Microsoft Teams, and there is small thing going in front of us like a video call. But imagine this Teams is handling many video calls at the same time, not just of one organization, but many organization, not just your schools, colleges, but it is also applicable to your huge tech industries, right? The tech industries that run today, many of them use Microsoft Suite for that seamless communication. So imagine the data that is being generated. So that's why I have named here the big data comes here, and then again with that thing in hand. So if you have the data, you need to compute that, right? So compute power is also something that is very very necessary, and not just these two. So there must be a powerful algorithm for you to kind of understand how to go around with this data and create some powerful logic. So that's what I can call is, like powerful algorithms are also needed in order to compute this data and get working with that. So that's the way ahead from here. So we'll be focusing on that. So cloud and AI will, let's see what is the magic that's in store for us. So without going ahead, I'll just give you a bird's eye view of what are the benefits of moving to a cloud. uh, so one is security. I won't explain much in detail here because there is a special part for that where I'll be explaining all these in detail to you. So security is the first thing. Then comes the privacy, high availability, scalability, and lower cost. So just to give a just a of course, the cloud is very much secured when you compare to your local servers. So now let's compare between cloud and a non-cloud architecture, like basically your own local server that you set up. So let's say you want to host a website, okay, in very simple terms, and now of course yours is a dynamic website, and let's say e-commerce shopping site, right? So now first thing that you need is a database, and you need a place to host your server, and you need to buy the domain and a lot of other things. So now let's see, you have to store it somewhere, so you need a database. So how can you do that? You'll have to buy a new stack of servers at your place, right? Firstly you'll have to buy it, then you'll have to how can you kind of install softwares on that. So you'll have to install the softwares, and then you can get it up, set it up and get it running. But the problem here is, let's say there is a breakdown, right? And you need to change the server, so again you will have to change it. And basically the whole server maintenance, whatever you buy, you'll have to maintain it on your own. There is no one else to maintain it for you, and you'll have to give it the necessary cooling system and the electricity and the internet and whatever it is, all the things, all the parameters that are there must be provided by you. There is no one else to take care of. Let's say there is someone who helps you. Hey, I'll handle all your data. You can just give me your data, and I'll guarantee you that it is secured with me. And now let me know what you feel. So of course you'll tell, right? Yes, take it ahead and maintain it. I'll just pay you whatever the cost that I have. So now let's say this person also tells you that I'll buy all the infrastructure that is needed, and all you need to do is pay me like a rent for what you use. So how would that be? That's exactly what cloud is for us. So cloud is basically giving you everything. So the infrastructure is set up for you, be it your server, be it anything that is set up for you in the data centers by huge tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, then there's Salesforce. So there are a lot more players in this field, right? If you name, there are a lot more. So today we'll be focusing on one of the major player here, that is Microsoft Azure. So how does that help you out, and how is it actually helping us out to host our applications, to develop new applications, and let's see how that works. So this is a gist for you of all those services that are available on Microsoft's Azure, right? So there is media and CDN. This is a bird's eye view of whatever it is. We'll be seeing a few of this in detail in today's session. So the first one is platform services. There is media, CDN, application platform, data, intelligence, analytics, and IoT, and then developer services and also the compute services. So these come under the platform services of Microsoft Azure. So media and CDN has all those things that you can see there, and application platforms has web apps, mobile apps, and function apps, and various other applications. And data is basically for you to store your data, right? It's your personal database. So SQL is one, and then there is Azure Synapse Analytics, Cosmos DB, SQL Server Stretch Database, right? Azure Cache for Redis, Table Storage, and Azure Search. In intelligence, again, as I said, this also cloud computing. Go back to the first slide where I told you cloud computing is not just limited to giving you data and compute power, but also it is evolved to such a phase where it can deliver you some intelligent services as well. So, what are these intelligent services? It can be your Azure, it can be a machine learning services, it can be a computer vision services, or any other things. So what Azure provides you here is Azure ML Studio, Azure bot services. I can just name an example here. All of us might have seen this IR website called IRCTC, which is a railway ticket booking site, right? And in the bottom there is this small chatbot that shows up, "Hey, I'm Disha. How can I help you?" So, how many of us knew that that particular service that also uses some architecture from Microsoft Azure bot services as well? So that's how Microsoft is serving in today's industry. And then there are cognitive services. I think who might have attended the previous session must have the idea of what cognitive services are, but if you do not have, don't worry, I'll be covering it briefly today as well. And then there is analytics and IoT, HD Insight, machine learning, um, Stream Analytics, IoT Hub, and many other services. So, as I told you, there are services also that are given to you over the cloud. And then there are developer services. For example, Visual Studio is something that we have all used, or all of us must be familiar with that. Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, and there are a lot more like that. And then DevOps. Xamarin is something like your native Android development has been provided to you by Google, but a cross-platform development is provided to you by Microsoft, and that's called Xamarin. And then there is Visual Studio App Center, then there is mobile engagement as well. So then this comes to compute services. This is what cloud evolved from, this is where cloud started from, but various phases came where it expanded and expanded to such an extent that today we have these many services. But let's see where it started from. That are the virtual machines, Azure Batch, Dev Test Labs, and container services. So what are these? Don't worry much about that, I'll tell all those in detail. And then there are compute services, virtual machines, Azure Kubernetes containers, and Azure Kubernetes. And then there are a couple of other type of storages as well. So uh, I'll tell you what are these other types of storages, but for now just remember that there are blob, queues, files, and disks. And then there is networking, virtual network, load balancer, DNS, and a lot of other things. And under these lie the data center infrastructure, as I told you initially. So let's say there's a person who comes out to you and say, "Hey, I'll manage everything. You just pay me for what you use." So that is that data center that is lying there, and it is managed by Microsoft Azure. In India, currently there are a few data centers from Microsoft which are already set up, and there is a fourth one that is coming up uh, very soon. So now, so I think all of you are clear till here. So without before going ahead, I'll just say why it is cheaper to use, right? Why cloud? As I said, now one might ask, why exactly should I use cloud? So if you're still not convinced, so let me add a few more points. So it will lower your operating costs in the first place, and then you can run your infrastructure more efficiently. And then the final part here is that you can scale your business needs, right, to a change, right? Let's say if there is a huge traffic that is entering your site on day one, but the same traffic doesn't enter on day two. So how will you manage both? If you have your own server setup, so then you'll have to add more servers and then do a couple of other things. But what cloud provides you is something called as elasticity. So it scales according to the traffic that is incoming, right? So that's how um, it works. So now again, if you're still not convinced, let's say, why should I move to cloud? Why cannot? Okay, you're okay by paying a little more extra, but you're still scared to move to a cloud. So again, if you have your own, what do you say, if you have your own data center, like tiny data center, let's say, if you have your own tiny data center setup, so then you'll have to again take care of everything, like how do I do, what if it breaks down, what if I keep updating it every day and then there is a breakdown, right? So that is a problem here, because companies these days are giving you updates on a very regular basis, right? So have you ever imagined that these many updates rolling out every day? In fact, if I just take an example of Microsoft Azure, it updates almost every week, or every 3 days once or something like that. Have you ever imagined that if you had your own servers and if you put so much load on that, there might be a breakdown again? So you cannot expect that to happen at the right time. So that's where I think you'll have to transition to a cloud based thing. And that's where you can find your solution. And not just this, you can leverage many more other services. It's not always about storage and database, as I told. And if you want any machine learning services, or like let's say H&M recently went into metaverse and they got in this something called as augmented reality based stuff. So Lenskart is also playing in that field already. So how are they able to achieve it? Just not because of this servers, but there are many more services that are involved. So all these are benefited to you if you move to a cloud based platform. So now I have told you so much about cloud. So now let's see what exactly is Microsoft Azure. So this project from Microsoft started in 90s and it was named as Project Red Dog. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but yeah, you heard it right. It was named as Project Red Dog initially when this started. Now it was of course codenamed, I guess, and then it was later renamed as Windows Azure, and finally in 2012 or 2014 it was again renamed to this current day, what we call it as Microsoft Azure. So this was something, an initiative that came up from Microsoft, right? They decided to go and provide these services to their users. So firstly, it's a future ready cloud. So there are various types of services that are available, and it supports all your needs from time to time. And then you can build on your own terms as well, right? You can have a open source languages that support you on this particular cloud, right? It's not limited to, okay, you might say, see, when I'm developing it offline, I have these many benefits, so yes, I'm using these open source like TensorFlow, or be it your any other simple framework or anything like that. It's open source. Can I have it on my cloud? Yes, of course you can have it on Microsoft Azure. In fact, Microsoft Azure already has it on the cloud. All you have to do is go there and use it as you want. And then you can operate on premises or on the edge. I'll just say what is edge computing in some time. Okay. And you can integrate it with various environments, various tools, and then get your application up and running. And of course the security is always kind of the higher priority one that Microsoft treats, and your data is always secured. In fact, when you, let's say you log in something to your database, like you log something into your database, and that particular log cannot be even read by Microsoft. Okay. So it is something that only you can access with that particular credential that you have. Once you do that, it will be encoded and then again stored into the database. And when you're kind of getting it back from your data, when you're retrieving it back from your database, again it decodes and give it to you. So this is how your data is being secured on Microsoft Azure. So now I've spoken so much about Azure, so let me just show you how it looks like. Okay, so today I'll be switching between these screens many times, so please bear with me. because I know, of course, just telling this to you and saying, see, this is how it works, this is what it is, it might be a little boring. So let's kind of get it a little more, hands on here. So this is how your portal looks like. So this is what you call the portal. So portal is basically a place where you can go. It's a graphical user interface. Again, as you can see here, everything is there, and these are a couple of things that I've already created. And so this is a graphical user interface where you can go and access all those services that I was just talking about. I told you that, let's see what are those services. So if I go to create a resource, so you can see I was telling about compute. Okay, let's say you want to host a virtual machine. So but you want to create it as well, right, before hosting. So I can go here to virtual machine, right? I can just click on that, and here you go. See, you can have anything here. So this is not available, so you can choose a different one. Anyway, you can choose what you want. So this is how you create it through a user interface. But okay, now you can tell me, okay, you just showed me the portal. What if I don't want to access the portal? How can I do that? You can have it here as well. There is your own cloud shell here, you can do it with that. Or you can simply use the PowerShell of your PC and get it up and running as well. So you can monitor things here as well. It's not just once you build and you're done, okay, I'm never using the portal again. No, again, you have analytic things here. You can do that. You can create custom dashboards. There are dashboards as well here. So you can create custom dashboards. If you want to create a new dashboard, you can go ahead and create that. And you can configure many other things for your optimal usage. Let's say you're an organization, you're not an individual user, so you have many parallel projects running in your organization, right? So if you have your own startup, let's say you have project A running with various other resources, project B running with various other resources, and you have to create a couple of, you have to differentiate between each. So that's when you can have something of all these. You can optimize the workloads. You can have various dashboards. You can give particular access to particular users, a particular access to let's say dashboard 1 has 10 people accessing it, dashboard 2 has 20 people accessing it. So you can kind of differentiate people based on their roles, and this will in turn reduce your workload as well. So now, of course, you know what is this. And let's say you don't find a service that you have to use, okay, or you want something else now. So there are a couple of Microsoft partners and third party vendors who host their services again on Microsoft Azure. So if you want to create an API, if you want to create something else, right, if you don't find it provided by Microsoft, so what Microsoft has done here is they have something called as this marketplace. So let's see what does marketplace have in store. So this is the Azure marketplace where you can find other services which are hosted by third party vendors or Microsoft partners, right? They have their own services hosted here, and you can leverage them as well. So for example, let's see, for machine learning, what are the other services. So appmin inc has something here, and they are giving it out as a virtual machine. And this anyways is from Microsoft. So see, NVIDIA image for AI optimized PyTorch is again by NVIDIA Corporation. So NVIDIA is nowhere a part of Microsoft, but still they are hosting their services on Microsoft Azure. There is a Red Hat, then there is SQL is anyway from Microsoft. So then there is a lot more things. You can see Flexify.io, for example, and in analytics. So this is how marketplace works. So there are a lot of independent vendors, third party vendors who give out their solution, and then you can have. So trust me or not, there are 8,000 plus listings on this particular marketplace alone. So imagine the flexibility you get with Microsoft Azure, right? It's not just limited to the services that Microsoft provides, but also there are various other services that third party players give you out here. So it's not just used by students or anyone like us, it is also used by IT professionals who are already working in this field. So again, this is a tour for you about Microsoft Azure and portal. So I just told you everything theoretically, how things work, what are the things available. So this is, even when I'm showing this to you, you can go to portal.azure.com and then log in. If you are a student of any university, you can log in with your college ID, and you'll be getting $100 for free, and you can leverage anything with that. So let's see what are the other categories available here. So compute is one thing I showed you, okay. So then there is a networking. So here is networking. So this is, again, this has a separate stack. So and then there is what is that, storage. Storage is here, and then there are mobile, and lot more other. So these are all the what do you say? These are all the categories. Now let's see a couple of. I'll not show you all of these categories, but let's see a couple of them. So let's say I show you compute, right? This is actually asked in your AZ-900 as well. Compute is something that they focus on a lot. So compute services are often, like primary reasons why you should go for cloud-based services. And Azure, of course, has its range of compute services that are offered to you. So as you can see, there is Kubernetes service, app service plan, and these are okay. This is fresh update which wasn't there before. So it shows you what are popular Azure services that are there, not just all services, but what are the popular services that are available. So you can see these are the popular services that are used by the Azure platform users. So Azure Virtual Machines is one which I have seen that people use a lot, right? So you can have VM based machines, Windows based machines, sorry, Linux and Windows based VMs as well, running on hosted on Azure. So now you might ask, okay, I know what is virtual machine. So what is virtual machine scale set in that case? So if you want to scale, like let's say if your need or if your requirement is not just satisfied with one VM, so if you want to scale those sets, right? So that's where you can have this scaling machines, or you can call it as virtual machine scale sets. And then you have Azure Kubernetes services, which are cluster management for VMs that are containerized services. So you must have an idea of what is Docker or what is DevOps before you jump into the Kubernetes services. For now, you can just understand that it is a cluster based management for VMs. And then there is Azure a Fabric service. I am not sure if it is here. So let me just see Azure Fabric service. Yeah, see service fabric clusters. So these are again distributed system platforms that runs on Azure on premises. Again, like let's say for microservices, especially you can have these Azure fabric clusters. So on and so forth. And then one thing that there is another famous service that is offered by Microsoft. Sorry, Azure Functions. Functions app. Yeah. So this is another service you can say that is offered by Microsoft again on their cloud, and it's an event driven and it's a serverless compute service. So what is serverless? It's not like you won't have any servers in the backend, but it is just like there is no need for you to worry on how much server should I hire or what is the compute part that I need to hire, but it is all scaled by your uh, function app again. So it has that logic to scale up in the backend. So all you need to do is write your piece of code, create your piece of API, get your development up and running. So that's all you need to do. So these are this is just for you to understand. So what was there in compute? Of course, I'll give you a link to this later on towards the end of the session, so you can go ahead and find it out. So then there comes networking. So in networking, again there are a couple of other services. So like Azure where is that virtual network? Yeah, see virtual network. So what is this? Connect VMs to incoming VPNs and connections. So let's say you want to group particular users to a particular VPN, so you can do that using this virtual networks. And then there is load balancers, right? So you can balance the inbound and outbound connections to build your applications or your service endpoints with the Azure load balancer. And then there are a lot more other things. If you want to learn more about anything, okay, if you can just go here and click on learn more, and it will show you more details about that particular service. So then there is storage. um yeah, so this is storage. This is where you have a simple storage that is like your SQL, all the way till your blob storage. So I just told you I'll tell you more about blob storage. So let's say you want to store very large objects, right, such as video files, images, or anything, so which is quite hard. You cannot do it in SQL. So how do you do it? So there is something called as in you can use this particular service. You can leverage this service which is faster than your traditional storage services, and that's called Azure Blob Storage. If it's not here, I'll just to show you. So blob storage is for IoT edge, but you can find blob storage for literally anything and everything. So because usually IoT is the play way you get in the data feed or the video feed. So that's why. we use this blob storage and stuff for IoT especially. So these services, whatever I've mentioned so far, are kind of durable because they are available anytime and they don't have a downtime, and then they're secure, and then they're scalable as well, with virtually unlimited storage. They are managed very well. They're accessible from your any point, like HTTP or HTTPS as well. And then there are a couple of I think mobile storage services, and then there are a lot more other storage services. Then there are databases if you want, right? So storage, as I told you, has not just the SQL things, but also it is divided into two subcategories here. One is storage, where you can store, as I said, bitmaps, JPG, large files and stuff. And then there are databases, which are our traditional databases that we have, SQL and a lot more, NoSQL database, Azure Cosmos DB, and a lot more other databases. Then you can also have these IoT integration. So I'm just giving you a tour of all the things that are available here, and this might be something interesting to all of you. So machine learning and artificial intelligence. So they have a couple of other storages here, and I just told you I'll tell you about cognitive services as well. So let me just give you a brief of that. What exactly is cognitive service? So cognitive service is a huge umbrella, but of course, again, there are subcategories in that, like speech, language, vision, decision, and open AI. So in speech, there are these speech to text, text to speech translation, and speaker recognition. In language, there is entity recognition, sentiment analysis, and a few more. And in vision, you have computer vision, custom vision, face API. In decision, you have anomaly detector, content moderator, and personalizer. So OpenAI is something that is newly added. So you can apply advanced language models for a variety of use cases, and they have still it in preview phase. So this is what your cognitive services looks like. But let me just give you a small demonstration of the same. So I think I'd showed this in my previous webinar as well. So this is a picture, and as humans, we can analyze this very well. But as a computer, if you just can see, okay, computer doesn't really understand anything apart from the format that it's in a JPG format, right? So how do we make that analyze? How do we make your computer analyze that what exactly is going on in this? So there is this cognitive services API that runs in the backend, and let's see what has its what is it showing us. So there is train in this picture. Yes, there is a train passing here. It's 99% sure. Okay, that's great. Then there is a platform, and then it's an indoor station, and so on and so forth. So let's see what is it extracting from here, right? So finally, it is able to say that people are waiting at a train station, and it is 83% sure that this is the scenario that is going on in this picture. Of course, as humans, we might feel that this is very simple for us, but for a computer, it is something that you'll have to make it understand, right? So, but here that is being taken care for you by Microsoft Azure. So all you have to do is you have to go to this particular portal that I showed you before and go here, provision this resource. It's a black box then, right? Everything is there in the backend. All you need to do is create this particular resource, grab those endpoints, use it, and utilize. That's all. So that is how it is simplified for you. And that was about one of the cognitive services, but there are a lot more. And when it comes to DevOps, right, DevOps is something that many of the companies are using today, right? So there are a couple of services that are offered in this field as well. So Dev Test Labs, DevOps Starter, Azure Load Testing, and lot more. So just to give you a brief of what DevOps is basically not a technology, it's a set of practices that are undertaken. So there are in automating your software delivery phase, right? Initially, there was your SDLC, so in which you used to study, I guess, waterfall model. Then there are other models that come up. So I think waterfall was the first one, then the agile model, and then there are a lot more models that had been there. But DevOps is something related to that category, which has come up very recently, right? Where you can automate things using continuous integration, CI/CD, what you call it, continuous integration and continuous deployment as well. So you can collaborate, you can have great collaboration with your teammates, and then upload your softwares, and then you can push it for production. So that's how DevOps works. This is just to give you a very brief introduction, but if you want to learn more, I've written a blog around the same. It's a series of blogs that I've written, so you can go there and check that out as well. So now let's see how to get started with the Azure account. So Azure account is something that you must have initially. Okay, as I told you, if you are a student enrolled at a particular university, you will have your email ID that is provided to you by your college, and then you can go ahead and redeem your Azure account using that, and you can have your student subscription from that. So Azure account will have multiple subscriptions as I've shown here. So there are, let's say, two subscriptions that you have currently. Okay, one, let's say, for your student, then let's say you're an MLSA as well. So you'll get a MLSA subscription here. And then your each subscription can be linked to various resource groups. So I'll just tell you what are the resource groups. And then under, so resource group will have another branch. So that is your resources. Let's say there is one resource created. If there's a SQL resource created here, there's a web app created here, but all are grouped under various resource groups. So now let's see what is Azure account. I told you what exactly is Azure account. How can you get one? So now let's see what are subscriptions. So once you get your Azure account, you need to have something called as this subscription. So these are very much needed for you in order to access any other resources that I just showed you, be it your database, be it your web app service or anything. So once you activate your account, so you will have a subscription linked to that. So if you're having your MLSA account, as I have mine, so if I just show you my subscription here, it says Visual Studio Enterprise. Okay. So why is it saying this zero? Wait, I'll just go to this create. I'll just create an analytics. Create. Okay, so here it is asking me, see, Visual Studio Enterprise is a subscription that I have. Similarly, if you're a student, you will have student subscription for your use cases. So that is what you mean by a subscription. Now once you have the subscription ready, so now let's say you're working on a project. Okay, so let's say you're working on a mobile application. So for a mobile application, let's say you're using Xamarin, and then you use a AI service offered by Microsoft Azure, and then you use a database offered by Microsoft Azure. And meanwhile, you also plan to work on another project, which is not a mobile application, it's a web app based project. So you have your web app, so you have your SQL database that is linked to that particular web app. And then you have, let's say, an IoT based some service that you're offering on that web app. So you have an IoT resource created as well. But now you might be confused that, okay, I've created two SQL databases. Which one is for the web app and which one is for my IoT based service? This is where something called as resource group comes in handy. So now, as you can see on my screen, I have these many resources here. But now I don't even know for which particular project had I used this something called as ARNAV, okay, or which particular project had I used this Quorum KBZ. So I'm not sure. So how do I actually differentiate between that? So there is something called as this resource group. Okay, resource group is something that holds. It's like a bucket. It holds all those tiny resources that you create within that particular bucket. So now let's say there is something called as AI conference. So what are the resources that I've created for AI conference? Okay, so there is a Azure Health Bot resource that I've created. So resource are nothing, but don't get confused with these terms. Resources are these things what you create, right? So what you create from this is called a particular resource. But if you have multiple resources created to hold them together, so there are something called as a resource group. So let's say Azure Demo here has a demo custom vision, two custom vision models. So Azure Demo 1, that's another thing. So it has again two custom vision models. So then there is BIAL Hackathon, which has something called as ARNAV, spatial anchors, right? Azure spatial anchors for mixed reality. So there is something other called as micro hack. See, this has something for custom vision. This has something for SQL Server, SQL database, custom vision again, and SQL Server. So this is, I think now and let's say there was something for my particular project that I was doing. So this is a static web app and quorum dev. Okay, see, there are a lot more resources: VM, network interface, NSG, public IP address, virtual network, and a disk. So these are all held in a particular place. So now I won't be confused. I can name this resource group as per my projects. So this is what you mean by resource groups. And then as I told you, what are resources already. So with that, I guess we are clear with how things work on Microsoft Azure, right? So just give me a heads up that if you're clear here, so that we can move on to the next thing, that is the different types of cloud that are available. Okay, so I'll assume that you guys have understood whatever has been taught till now. So I'll just move on to the next part, that is some fundamental concepts. Okay. So as you might have heard, when I told you about cloud, now there might be different categories in that cloud, right? Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud are the three categories that we discuss when it comes to this cloud models, or you can call this as cloud models, like, you know, deployment models or whatever you call it. So this is a cloud model that we have. Public cloud is the first category. So the services are offered over the public internet and available to anyone who wants to purchase them. Okay. So cloud resources such as servers and storage are owned and operated by a third party, kind of a third party player here, right? The cloud service provider, we call them as CSPs, cloud service providers, or individual service providers, ISPs. Okay. And they're delivered to you over the internet. So of course, when I stated this definition, you might be clear that whom am I referring to. So yes, it can be Azure again, it can be Microsoft's Azure, or it can be any other key players in this field. So that is what you can do, what you can expect from a public cloud offered by a third party provider, and available to anyone over the public internet. And it can be scaled quickly and conveniently, because as I told you, it's not just two tiny servers that are running, but there are millions of servers running in each data centers, and it is handled by the tech giants. Now let's say, before going to hybrid cloud, I'll move on to the private cloud. What is a private cloud? Okay, so private cloud consists of it is kind of exclusive for a couple of users, or from one business, or the other organization. Okay, it is within a specific organization. It's not as big as public cloud, but it is kind of exclusive for maintained for a couple of users. Okay, it can be located at, let's say you're an organization or you're the startup, and you decide that you won't give out everything away, and you have some servers, and you'll maintain them, you'll be maintaining them on your own. So this is where you can say that they are on premises with you. Okay, or it can also be like, you're outsourcing a third party for that particular server to be hosted on your on premises site. Let's say you have an office in Bangalore. Okay, so what you do, you say, hey, I need couple of servers hosted on my particular um, premises where you are, and I want to maintain that as well. So you can outsource them, you'll pay for that particular thing, you'll pay for that whole setup what you have. Of course you own them, but you have outsourced it through a third party. So that is what you do in private cloud. So it is offered to selected users over the internet or a private internal network. Okay, it provides greater security controls. Of course the control here lies in your hands. You have more control when comes to the the public cloud, and requires additional data center staffing and maintenance. Let's say you have that setup in your premises. Now you need to hire a couple of people to actually maintain all those things, right? You need to give that electricity, you need to maintain that those servers, you'll have wear and tear. Of course, when there is electronics, wear and tear is inevitable. So you will have to hire people for that again. So common now, when you have understood what is public and what is private exclusively, so now it is easier for you to understand what is hybrid cloud. So it is a combination of these both. You have something hired from the public cloud, and you have something hired from the you have something on premises as well. So you use both at the same time. So this is what you call as a hybrid cloud model, and your security is kind of shared here. The responsibility is shared between both of them. Like, let's say you are hiring some services from Microsoft Azure, so Microsoft is responsible for some security, like whatever the data they have, and you're responsible for whatever the data you have. And you have, okay, the control here is not as much as you get in private, but it is not very less as you get in public. Okay, so it is somewhere in between that. So this is a chart which explains you. Okay, I think this is something else. So this is something about public cloud, private cloud, and the hybrid cloud. So I guess you are clear with all this. So without further delay, now let's see what are some of the advantages of using all these things. So firstly, it is available anytime. So cloud, if you say, it is available anytime. So Microsoft Azure doesn't, for example, doesn't have a breakdown, right? It runs throughout the day, 24 into 7, 365 days, right? And it is scalable, as I told you. If your traffic is varying, right, and if you want to scale it according to your traffic, so it is scalable without much hassle, right? You need not buy your own data. All you need to do is, hey, I need more power, and they'll provide it to you. And then that it's elastic, it is agile. So means basically you can deploy and configure cloud based resources quickly and very efficiently as your app needs upgradations. So again, of course, when there's traffic coming into your e-commerce application, is not just the back end but also front end also needs some changes as well. So you can do that. Then this is something very very exclusive to public cloud. So it is geo distribution. So it is not just stored in one place, it is stored in many other regions. So there are a couple of regions which we'll be discussing later on. So you can deploy apps to data centers from around the globe. It is not just like, let's say if you are in India, it is not necessary that you can just host it in India. You can host it in UK, you can host it in your particular application, you can host it in, like, let's say North America, you can host it in South America, anywhere across the globe. So that is something which is very exclusive to public cloud. And let's say if there is a disaster, let's say something happens, some mishappening is happening with some uh, particular data center, so data is not lost, because there is a mechanism with which your data is stored in not just one center but various other regions. Okay, as I told you, there are regions. So you can there is a disaster recovery thing associated with your particular software or your data. So which is not very much evident in private cloud. Private cloud doesn't offer you that, but public cloud has it. So now again, coming to this, okay, this is all okay for me, but now coming to the main point. Okay, now tell me about the cost, which is beneficial to me. Yes, so that's where I'm coming. So capital expenditure and operational expenditure is the two type of cost that you can incur when you're setting up anything, right? Capital expenditure is something like a one time investment. So let it decreases as you have set up your infrastructure. So initially when you set up, the capex is very high, very very high, because you have to buy those GPUs, those CPUs, and whatever the things you need. And so it is very high initially. So it is basically for all the physical infrastructure that you need. So that is called capital expenditure, which is very high when you see for a private cloud, right? If you are the particular person who is maintaining that, so it is very high here. And operational expenditure is something that is costing to you once you start running that particular infrastructure what you have set up just now, right? So they are billed to you, and then you have to give the electricity, internet, whatever the other things, wear and tear, everything comes under your operational expenditure. So it is. And again, when I say this cloud, now you might be asking me a question. Yes, I am ready to go for the cloud, but should I pay for that server? Like, what if I'm not using it? Let's say, what if I want to shut down that particular app, I don't want it anymore? So should I again keep paying for that? The answer is no. It is very simple, because you just pay for what you use. It's just like you hire a rented house, you stay there for some time and then you go. It's not like you bought that house. Or even better example, let's say there is electricity that is being generated at thermal power plants, or this hydro power plants, hydroelectric power plants, and many more. You don't pay for the entire electricity that is being generated. Instead, you just pay for the units that you consume out of that whole generated electricity, right? Similarly here also it goes the same way. You just pay for what you have used. Let's say you managed, you don't want to use any more services, and you're done. You are, let's say, you are working on this project for your final year in engineering. So you're done with using that particular project. So now you want to delete all those things. You don't want anything, you don't want to pay even a single penny. Of course you can go there, delete that, and you won't be charged anything extra. So there are no upfront costs. Okay, just to summarize, there are no upfront costs, and there is no need to purchase anything, again, as I told you. And you can just go as a pay as you go model. This is called a pay as you go model. So this is something that cloud again benefits you. With that saying, I think pretty much of you are familiar with something called as SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and IaaS, right? So let's see what are these things. So as I told you, these three are cloud models. Okay, so now as I told you, what does cloud do? Cloud gives you services. So there are a couple of models in cloud services as well. So this is where we have kind of differentiated them. So these are called cloud service models and not cloud models. Okay, so this is a catch here. Please pay attention, because you might be confused what is this and what is this. So this is something for us, for the services that are offered to you on the cloud. This is something, the cloud itself is divided into various models. Okay, so this is something you need to understand now. What is SaaS? So software as a service, as the name itself, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're using some software that is hosted on their cloud as a service. So let's say if you go to Microsoft Azure, so what is the SaaS that you have, right? If we go to this marketplace, okay, if I just go to the marketplace here and see what are the SaaS categories, product type. So this is a managed service. I think there is, it will show you something here. Mm, yeah, see here, it's saying SaaS. So sorry, I clicked on that. Sorry, I clicked on that and it went to create it. Yeah, see here, it's saying SaaS, SaaS, and SaaS. So basically, these are the softwares that are given to you over the cloud. So this doesn't require you to create a server, provision that, do everything. No, you just are worried about using the software. So this is given to you over the internet, or over the internet, yes, over the internet to you again on Microsoft Azure. Let's say you want a much more generalized example of this. Okay, your Microsoft 365 suite that is offered to you by Microsoft, right? So which has Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then what do you say, Access, and many more other things. So that also is your example for software as a service. So now let's say you're clear. Okay, yes, I got what is software as a service. So now let's go and see what is um, platform as a service, right? PaaS. I think this also is self-explanatory to you. So there is a platform that is hosted by Microsoft Azure. So there are all these stacks that are already there. All you need to do is go there, take that, like for example here is your what can I say, the app services, right? The Azure app services, for example. Let me just go and show you that. um Web apps, yeah, right? So these things here, let's say this web app. So this is something like, Azure app service. It is managed hosting and everything, but again, you do not have fully control over the infrastructure. You do not have fully control of the software, so you are responsible a part of infrastructure and a part of the software. So that is what you call as a platform as a service. Okay, it is managed, and it's a hosting environment for you. The cloud provider manages the virtual machines and networking resources, and the cloud tenant deploys their applications into the managed hosting environment. So you have your application ready. Let's say you have your e-commerce platform ready, and then you want to host it. So that is what you can go for, PaaS and not SaaS in that case. Let's say you want to do everything on your own. You want to see how much virtual machines you want, and let's say you want to see, okay, I want this web app, I want this everything. So that's when you can go for something called as IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Okay, for example, for this I can take here, it is written as Google Compute Engine and AWS. So of course, like, you can go to, again, Microsoft Azure is also there. So you can go to Microsoft Azure, host your virtual machines, and then deploy your applications on that, and then create endpoints. Basically, you have lot more work here when compared to PaaS. So of course, let's talk in terms of control here, right? So you have least control when it comes to SaaS, because lot of the things are managed to you by the cloud provider. But you have the most control when it comes to IaaS, because you're just hiring the compute engines from there, and you're doing things on your own. So you have the most power. You can set, the firewalls and many more other things with this on your own. So that's why you have more power when it comes to IaaS. So let's see another way. So servers and storage, networking, firewall, security, data center, physical plant and building. It's something, very exclusive at the very crude level. It's called IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. Then your development tools and database management, business analytics, operating system. So including all these comes under platform as a service, because there's a platform that you're using. Finally, the SaaS, I think this is very self-explanatory. SaaS, let's say you're hosted some third-party applications, or you're using something from the marketplace. So that comes under SaaS. In fact, there is something called as this Azure Health Bot. So that also is a software as a service kind of model. So I think this is pretty much clear to you. So what are the cloud service models that are there? So of course there are various advantages and disadvantages linked to both, right? One gives you more power, one gives you less power, and which is briefly summarized in the table here. Then after this, I guess we are pretty much done with that. What is that? So then there are management groups. Okay, now after this, let's go and understand what is the architectural structure, right? So you understood what are the fundamental concepts and then how things work in the back end. So now let's see how architectures work. Like, how can I get a hang of the architecture that goes on the behind. So there are management groups that you create, and they also have indeed some subscriptions. And then there are resource group. Let's say you are an organization, right? You are not a user now. The previous picture that I showed you, you are a particular user. Let's say now you're an organization. You have multiple groups. Like, let's say an organization like let's say um, Microsoft. Okay, it is also using its own infrastructure to give you some services. So now there are various engineers, thousands of engineers working on that, right? But all are not working on the same projects. As a some is working on the Outlook based projects, some of them are working on the Teams based projects. So right, there are many more groups like that. There are many more teams working. So now you cannot give everyone the access. Yeah, see, go ahead. You have these credentials. Log in. Use whatever you want. No, that cannot be done. Specific user must be given a specific role based access. That's what you call as that management group. So in these management groups, so you have various users, various people accessing various services. And again, the resources groups, resources and subscriptions remain the same way as you have, but this is not as a user, this is as a company, or as an organization, how you have to take care. So with that, I was telling you about something called Azure regions. If you remember, around like 2 3 slides ago, I was telling about something, disaster recovery is there. You can deploy it in various regions. So these are the regions that are given to you by Microsoft Azure. So there is West India, there is Central India, there is South India, right? These are all those tiny tiny data centers that are set up. And here you can see there are available regions, availability zones. Okay, I'll tell you what are they. And there are announced regions. So as I told you, there is a fourth. This is not updated map, but there is another new data center that is proposed in India now. So it will be coming up. So the Spain central one was proposed, and the Mexico central was proposed back then when this chart was under progress. So now let's see what is a region. Okay, so what is Azure region? So it is a geographical area on the planet that contains at least one, but potentially multiple data centers that are nearby and network together with a low latency network. So of course, when I tell you about all these things, okay, you can access these things, you can get these things, you can get these services. You might question, what if there is a network lag, right? That is all handled by Microsoft again, and all of them have low latency. So they are divided into various regions. And why are these regions important? Because as I told you, if there is a loss of data anywhere, like, because of any mishap, or there is some other happening here or there, so in that case your data must be secured. And once you create in one particular region, like let's say this DB, as you can see in this picture, it is shared in multiple regions as well. So this is why it is very very necessary for you to understand what is a region. So now let's say this says something about the availability zone. So what is availability zone? So availability zones are physically separate data centers within an Azure region. So let's say this particular region here, right? West India, Central India, South India, this is an Azure region. And then this particular group is an Azure region. So within them, where are the availability zones is something, like let's say there's an availability zone in West India, there's an availability zone in Central India, there's an availability zone in South India. So this is what you call an availability zone. And they are having something called as this isolation boundaries. Okay, they have the boundary set up. Okay, because this West India has a separate data center, Central India has a separate data center, South India has a different data center. So that's how your availability zones are set up. Now, region pair. Okay, as I told you, let's say there is a mishap in this whole zone. Doesn't mean that your data is gone now. Okay, you just told me that yes, see, it is shared under multiple data centers. Now, what happened? Let's say I have some mishap happening in these three regions. So now what? Is my data gone? No. The answer is again no, because there are region pairs again. It is not just ending here, but it is having something called as region pairs. Okay, so each Azure region is always paired with another region with same geography, such as like let's say US, Europe, and Asia. So they are sharing this thing of at least they're 300 miles away, right? So these are like, let's say, as I told you, US, Europe, and Asia. So these are a region pair, for example. So your data is being shared everywhere there, and it is stored within there. In case of any mishap, the data that is lost here can be recovered from the other region. So this is how um, you can say, like, again, your data is in much more safer hands. So with that, I guess this is over. So I already explained you what is resource groups and how things work. So now let's see how does your payment work, because this is something which every one of us are curious to know. How does my payment work here? So let's say if you have 10 subscriptions, as I said, you can have multiple subscriptions on single account, right? I can go ahead and create a sandbox and I'll get another subscription there. So your billing account is again having two separate billing profiles. That's a subcategory. And then again, there is separate invoice section, and your invoice is generated again on your Azure subscription, because Azure subscriptions is something that is the endpoint, and from there your resources are linked. Of course, if you go down here, then there are resource groups, then there are resources, and then that is based on which you are charged. So on a higher note, so it comes to your Azure subscription, and from there it goes to your invoice section. From there it is coming to a billing profile, and from there it is going all the way up to your billing account, right? So that is how your billing is managed. So after that, I think we have route manage. This is not something very necessary. So now I've told you all these things, and let's say, take a look at something practical now, right? Because I know it was too much theory for all of you to digest. So now let us see what are the various kind of practical use cases that I have experienced with Azure. Right now, I guess you know what is Azure, what are the various resources that are Azure on Azure, and you know how to use them. So now what you must be knowing is how to utilize them in your projects, right? That is what something which we are all concerned with. So now let's see how I have utilized Microsoft Azure in a couple of my projects. So there is something called as your Logic app. Okay, this is again a service that is offered to you in this. Okay, I'll just go and show you what is that. Logic apps. So yeah, see, this is something called as Logic apps. Now this is something that you can have with a low code platform. Okay, this is one of the low code platform that is there. So this is basically used for your API creations. Okay, let's say you have to link your backend to, let's say you want to automate something, or let's say you want to link your backend to front end, which are hosted on two different platforms, right? Or let's say if you have hosted everything on Azure, you want to link your SQL server and your user entry to a particular, let's say you have a web page where your user enters some data, login credentials, and something on a store somewhere, right? Once the user enters those credentials back into your website, you have to tally that back into your server and get it back to this and say, yes, you're successfully logged in. So all the way to do this, there is a pipeline you have to set up in between. So there are APIs that work here, right? And these APIs can be generated using the Azure Logic apps. One way. There are many more other ways, but I'm just saying one way that I have used. Okay. So I have created an API using the Azure Logic apps, and then I'm sending the post and get requests with that to my SQL server. Why am I sending post and get request here? Was simple, because I had created a bot, okay, using the Azure Health Bot framework, in which it was asking the user to enter couple of parameters, like let's say age, height, weight, right? Temperature, and many more other parameters. Now it shouldn't be waste, right? When the user is entering that, I have to store it in the database. Now, when the user, let's say he entered everything, now he's going to that particular doctor, and the doctor wants to access, okay, what did this particular patient enter when he entered to the database when he was in the reception, like let's say. So what doctor can do, okay, he'll just enter the name of this particular patient, and your API here again runs back to your SQL database, and it fetches, okay, this particular user had fed these values, and it will show, okay, now the doctor is having this particular record, that yes, see, patient number XYZ, let's say patient Shreyan. Okay, Shreyan had entered that, okay, his height is this, his age is this, his particular symptoms are these, and so on and so forth. So now what we did, we have automated the whole thing. So there is no need for the doctor to again ask, yeah, what is wrong? What are your parameters? What are your things? So I've automated everything here. So that was done using this data connection call. And then this API handled all those posting and getting things that I'm just explaining to you to the SQL database, which was storing that thing. So this was one of the projects. So then another project that I worked on was something of this architecture. So I'd used a Google Maps service in that linked to my phone, and also there were a lot more architectures that were lying on Microsoft Azure. Yes, so I had something related to blockchain here. Okay, the blockchain was storing all the coins that were generated by the user. Okay, I think many of you must have heard about the Steps at Go app. Okay, when you walk couple of miles, you get couple of coins as a reward, right? And you store it in a special place, and that's what I did here. And I stored those coins in a blockchain workbench, sorry, on a blockchain architecture. And of course the thing that I used here, right, the Azure service that I had used here was nothing but the blockchain workend. And this backend server was nothing but handling all the API requests that were coming up. Like let's say the user earned these coins. Now what should the API do? It should technically carry those and put it in the wallet, which is again hosted on blockchain. So that is what this pipeline was set up here. And let's say the user takes a photograph of, let's say, this particular brand KFC. Now I have to show him what are the offers that are available in this KFC brand. So that was handled by custom vision. It was analyzing, and then it was giving back to the main server. And now let's say this user enters something like, let's say, remind me when my particular flight, or when my particular flight is being ready for the departure. I want an alarm so that I can go and get this done. So again, feed it to the database. Our database is not just a single SQL database, but it was having multiple databases connected, right? So it will interact with the other databases and give you back that, let's say I set an alarm at 7:20. So it goes back, it says, okay, his flight is at 7:20, so expected boarding time is at 7 o'clock. Okay, so I have to set an alarm at 7 o'clock. So this is all done by the backend. It is not fed by the user. It's not like your simple alarm that you set on your phones. Now there was another feature where, like, let's say you have to go around and navigate inside the airport. So there is one way that, I can say take right, go right, take left, go straight. But what I used here, what we decided to use, was a Pokemon Go based, I think all of you have heard about this game called Pokemon Go, which was like, an augmented reality based game. So based on this AR based navigation was something that we decided to use, just to make it more user friendly, or, to improve the user experience here. So we use something again called Azure Spatial Anchors to get this done. Again, that thing was also used from Microsoft Azure. But can you see that all these particular things that I had shown you here were utilized from Microsoft Azure, and they had all those use cases that I wanted. They served me. Finally, I was able to host my application. So this is how you can store your um, what do you say? I mean, you can have your delivering of your compute resources over the internet. So all these resources was something that I didn't even have. Let's say I wanted a virtual machine as well to run all these together. Okay, so I'm just giving another example. So let's say I wanted a virtual machine. So how do I do that? Of course, again, I go to Microsoft Azure, create one, put it in my architecture, and then send all the requests to this VM. And in turn, this VM handles all these requests for me, right? So instead, we chose to use this. So this is how you can leverage Microsoft Azure practically into your projects or whatever you are working on. So of course, this is not the end. This is just the start of what we have done today. There are a lot more compute services that you can. Let me go back to the portal. There are compute services, there are app services, right? As I told you, there is something called as app services. You can go around and, have a look at them, because those are the platform as a service applications. As I told you here, if I have to show you, these are the app services. For example, web apps, web jobs, and then API apps, and a lot more. So there is a particular use case. It is, again, I think all of you are familiar why to use, when to use, right? And as I told you, there is something called as Azure Functions app. Let me just show you that serverless app. Functions, yeah. So see, this is a function app, serverless application. So it doesn't mean there are no servers at all available in the backend, But of course you have to see, like you have to just manage your API calls, but the servers and all are managed by this function app. Again, based on your need, based on your API, you will be allocated to the server. So that's why we call it the serverless. If you want to read more again on this, there is a blog written around the same. And you can go around and explore what is there in these databases section. There is SQL, there is Cosmos. If you want to, let's say, if you're interested in knowing what is, let's say, like Cosmos DB, right? You haven't heard about the Cosmos DB anywhere. So how do you do that? So simple thing, you can go to this thing here, click on docs, right? You can see, okay, what is Cosmos DB? Okay, in today's thing you have this, and what are the key benefits, okay, and what are the concepts and everything. So you have a brief walkthrough of this thing. Let's say this wasn't very comfortable to you, okay, you want to go ahead and see what is, you want to have a more learning kind of experience and not like a documentation, not like a guide. So here it will show you, this is nothing but like, a NoSQL database. How do you create it with the Cosmos DB? So that is what it will show you step by step. Now let's see, I have shown you everything. Let's say you want to create a simple SQL database. Okay, so how do you do that? So I'll go here and type SQL databases. I've created one here, but I'll show you by creating another one. Okay, so I think this is the last thing and we'll end it here. So firstly, I'll show you how to, okay, this is the subscription. I think by now you're familiar with what are the subscriptions, right? And resource groups, I'll, let's say, create a new one. I think I'll go with one I have. If you want to create a new one, let's say Bootcamp. Okay, I'll create something called as Bootcamp. So all those practical things that I showed you, I'm just sorry, all those theoretical things that I showed you, I'm summing that up into this one practical part here. So let's say I want to create a database name. I'll just name it as Bootcamp database. Let's say I'm storing your data. Bootcamp database. Now I have to, as I told you, there must be a server through, I think if you have seen this architecture, you must be clear now. So there is a server and then in turn that is linking to a database. So what is that server gonna be? So you can create a new server here. Let's say Bootcamp. Okay, this is available. It's already in use. Okay, Bootcamp Azure. Is it available? Yes, it is available. And where do, as I told you, this is something that is very overwhelming in this, because you can create anywhere. Like, let's see, there are these many regions where you can create. So let's create in West US. Okay. Server admin login. Okay. There is a admin now, right? You're the admin. So let's say Shreyan. I'm naming myself. Okay. I'm creating a password. Okay. It cannot be. Okay. I'll just say bad one. Okay. It is done. One, two, three. Okay. It's not matching. Bad. It's matching now. So after that is done, you can see this OK button is coming up. So if you just click on this, it will go ahead and create a server for you. See, now your Bootcamp database, so the database name is here. Also, your server is up and running, right? Or if you have any previously created servers, you can click on them as well. So now what you want to have, you can, do you want an elastic pool? That is basically, if you want have that elasticity, if you want, you can create that. So if you want, let's say, click on yes. So then again, you have to create one. So for now, for simplicity, I'm creating no. So the compute plus the storage option that you want, you can just configure your database as in how you want based on your need. So what is okay, there's DTUs and then this data maximum size. You can choose these accordingly. Let's say you're not sure of what is a DTU, right? Database transaction units is nothing but your DTUs. So there is a huge documentation on this. You can go through this and understand what is DTU, how to go around with that, right? What is the tier that you want to choose. For now, I'm going with the default one. And backup storage, as I told you, how do you want to storage this backup? Let's say there is a mishap in one of the data center, right? How do you want to storage? So I'll go with the geo redundant backup storage. As I said, you, there are geographic regions, right? I gave an example of US, Asia, and Europe, right? So there are these three geographic regions. So how, I'm choosing with that. So then you can go to networking, and you can see a couple of other things here. What is connection policy? What are my minimum TLS required? What is my network connectivity? Then there is security. So let's say you want to configure something here, right? You can configure all this. And then there is existing data, database collation, maintenance window. How do you want to have that? 5 a.m. to 8, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. maintenance or something like that, and so on and so forth. You can create all these things. So once you're done creating, you'll get to know how much is it going to cost you per month. So here, for example, it's saying me it is going to cost me 1080 rupees per month. Okay. And then it was saying me, yes, say this is all you have selected. Is a brief summary. Once you're done with this, you can just go ahead and click on create. Okay. So it will take some time. It will firstly validate. Okay. Validation is something that runs to see whether you have filled up this form clearly or not, or if there are any other things that are missing in this, or you have to fill it up or not. So if it is done, if the validation is done, see here it is saying me it is submitting the deployment. Okay. So yes, my validation was very successful, and that's why the deployment is in progress. So till that is being created, let's not waste time, and I will go to a one that I've already created. So this is something that I created for my previous project. So there is something called as query editor here, wherein, okay, you can do this. You have to log in firstly. You can create your own tables and stuff like that, and then you can write in your queries. Let's say you want to view your uh, Azure Data Studio. I think it's not here. Okay, let me just log in. I don't remember my password because this was created a long time ago. So let's see if this works. We'll be able to log in. So this is the same SQL Server admin that I'm using. So I just created right in the server Shreyan, and then I gave a password. So that is the same thing. Okay, so it is having some problem here because this database was hosted long back. But this is how you can query into this particular database. Okay, you can either log in using your Azure Active Directory, and you can even log in using your SQL Server authentication, which we created during the deployment. So since mine is still being deployed, so I think let's not waste time around that. I think you guys are pretty clear with this. And this is how you create your simple resource on Azure. I've just shown you how to create a SQL database. I would suggest you all to go ahead and log into portal.azure.com and create your own databases. So in the beginning of the session, if you remember, I had told you I'll give you a couple of resources that you can refer. I'm pretty sure that you must have forgotten a couple of things, or you might have missed out a couple of things that I've explained to you today. So what you can do, you can go to Microsoft Azure, of course, the place that I was showing to you right now, to the learn option. You can find tutorials by Microsoft and lot more other use cases. I just mentioned a couple of use cases like the IRCTC's Disha, and a few more other things that I discussed today. But there are a lot more use cases that are being going out there. So you can refer to all those with on the official Microsoft page. Let's say you want to learn more about this thing, or let's say you forgot to take notes of today's this session, and now you're worried how will I kind of prepare for the exam. So don't worry, the learn Microsoft Learn has got you covered there. So what you can do, you can go here simply to a new page, Microsoft Learn. Okay, and then go here, and yeah, see, there is something called as Microsoft Azure describe the core Azure services. So you can go here, and these are the parts that I had covered today, right? And what are the Azure fundamentals, the architectural components, right? What are the fundamental concepts, and everything is covered here. So we'll be covering the rest of the part in the coming days in this particular boot camp, right? So for today, you can just go through part one and part two. Whatever I've covered is in those particular parts. And if you want to learn more about, let's say, like SQL database, right? If you want to learn more about, let's say, the architecture that I showed you just now, and I told you, right, one of my projects is also live here. So how to practically utilize that? So you can go here, integrating with the database. See, there is this particular architecture that I was showing you guys. There's the same architecture that I showed you a while ago here. I have authored this particular learning path. So you can go ahead and see how to link your particular health board, how to do it practically, so that you'll have a hands-on feel. See, it is this learning is not just about your examination, but it is also how good you are at to apply this in your real world projects. So you can have a example here. This is how I have applied to one of my real world project. So not just this, there are a lot more learning paths that are available on this Microsoft Learn platform, and a couple of videos are also there, which is called Learn Live TV. So you can go here and start watching it. So see, Learn Live. So there are 123 episodes on various projects hosted by Microsoft experts, and then you can see, like, how are they leveraging it. So you can go through all of these, and that will help you to have more understanding of whatever we have discussed today. With that, I would like to conclude today's session on the very basics around Microsoft Azure. I hope this wasn't too much for all of you. Of course, I would suggest you all to revise this on Microsoft Learn today before attending tomorrow's session, so that you know where have we left it and how will we take ahead from there. So with that, I would like to thank you for all attending the session, and over to the Azure developer community team.
Yeah, okay. So thanks for joining, Shreyan. It was a very insightful day one today for everyone, and thanks for joining everyone for joining the session. I hope you learned a lot of things today. Shreyan shared a beautiful insights about all the topics of basics of fundamental, and the best part is the about the Azure developer community. You can join tomorrow session day two, and you can just refer. If you have missed any part, you can just refer to Microsoft Learn site. They have amazing documentation. They are best place to learn. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks Shreyan, for coming over here. And let's meet tomorrow, guys. See you then. Bye bye.
See you. Take care. Bye bye.